So in order to look forward into the future, let's take a little look into the past. And I put up an illustrative slide to give you a sense of the rough nuclear balance that sort of emerged in the later stages of the Cold War. And getting there really wasn't easy. There were at least 3 near misses, nuclear wars along the way. But what I particularly like to draw your attention to is there was a tendency toward an increasing convergence of nuclear systems on both sides. Over that time, numerous treaties limited the number and scope of weapons, eliminated entire classes of weapons. An anti-ballistic missile treaty that tried to lock in mutual vulnerability in the hopes of lowering the attractiveness of a disarming first strike. And really what emerged is what I like to call a rough symmetry between ourselves and some measure of understanding about the relationship between ICBMs, SLBMs, strategic bombers, and those major forces that made up the bulk of our respective strategic nuclear forces. And that idea of rough symmetry is really important, and we'll come back to that shortly. But as we move into this new era of great power competition, this balance is going to give way to accelerating and diversifying nuclear delivery capabilities and an increasing variation between the world's nuclear forces. So what does that variation really look like? And I'm going to give you 2 slides to show you what that variation might look like. First up, I'm going to show you some nuclear developments that are ongoing in Russia. All of these systems were announced by President Putin back in 2018, all very different. And as I go through this, keep in mind that the U.S. is only replacing the strategic nuclear systems it already has. Minuteman replaced by Sentinel, new Columbia-class SSBNs replacing the Ohio-class, but still retain the Trident II strategic ballistic missile. And the Raider will replace the B-2 Spirit as America's airborne stealthy leg of the triad. But again, the diversity of these systems you can see here are striking. Sarmat bringing back in heavy multi-warhead nuclear weapons. Again, armed with hypersonic glide vehicles, which are important because they can go either direction around the globe and also fly at differing altitudes and are highly maneuverable. Another class of weapon you can see there, Poseidon, nuclear-powered underwater drone with multi-megaton, up to 50 megaton nuclear weapons on board, creating a radioactive tsunami to strike U.S. coastal targets. Nuclear-powered cruise missiles, a capability or an idea that we went away from in the 50s and 60s because it was so nuclear. It was very, very dirty and that sort of thing. But the Russians are still experimenting with it. Again, things like Kinzhal and Zircon, new ways to deliver nuclear weapons. But again, that diversity of systems is really striking. Those heavy ICBMs, hypersonic glide vehicles, nuclear-powered, globally ranging air and sea delivery means are quite unlike anything in the U.S. arsenal or any Western arsenal for that matter. And again, in addition to what I've shown you on the screen here is that Russia retains vast numbers of sub-strategic nuclear weapons as well. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And what's different about the Cold War is not just the return of Russia, but now also the movement of China into the first rank of nuclear powers. Over the next 2 decades, I believe we're going to see their views of minimum viable deterrence concepts giving way to rushed nuclear breakouts and a reach towards near strategic parity with both the U.S. and Russia. Somewhere between the U.S. and Russia in terms of what it's building for its major legs of the triad, like the United States, but also building a wide range of new capabilities. Most notably in July 2021, they tested something that many commentators in public assert might have been a fractional orbital bombardment test, also something that the US and the Soviet Union decided not to pursue during the Cold War for strategic stability reasons. But also they're developing a wide range of hypersonic glide and air-breathing hypersonic vehicles that we'll sort of see in that 2030, 2040 timeframe. And again, on the slide here, you can see, going from sort of 300 nuclear weapons all the way up to in these kind of numbers. So again, I see in the quote in the question here, that number came from the DIA's military security developments of the PRC last year, which again is a publicly available document that you can Google and find So go ahead and take a look at that. But again, you can see some of the quotes in here about General Milley talking about, we don't know if this is quite a Sputnik moment, but it's very close to that. It has all of our attention. And that you can see the bullet above that where Xi Jinping himself aims to achieve this great rise in strategic capabilities to accelerate the pace of development and make enhanced breakthroughs in strategic deterrence capabilities. So again, we're in a fundamentally sort of different place between a bipolar nuclear competition where the U.S. is on the receiving end of two peer nuclear adversaries. So something to keep in mind as we look forward.